Broken ways. This is the phrase used in the First Nations version of the James passage that we just heard, which is usually translated as sin. Now, sin is a big concept to try and make sense of, but essentially, sin is that which separates us from God, from each other, and from creation. Sin separates us from the goodness that God desires for God's creation. But the word sin can be loaded and complicated to talk about. And sadly, it's a word that has been used to vilify, to belittle, and to judge. And I wonder if at times we either get our backs up, feel deep shame, or just tune out when we hear this word used. But broken ways, there's something about this that hits differently. It points to something being not quite right, about something gone off course, about wandering down the wrong path, the path other than the one the Creator is calling us to walk. It should be clear to us that the residential school system era was a broken way. The residential school system, run in partnership with the government and the church, sought to remove Indigenous ways from children. The purpose of the system was to assimilate Indigenous children to the Western way, breaking their ties to their traditions, languages, and to the land. There was little choice given as to whether or not this broken way was followed. Attending residential school was imposed on Indigenous children. It was masked with stories of the schools being a place of important learning, hiding the truth that students were reprimanded for speaking their language, that the environment they lived in was wrought with abuse, and that many, too many, would not return home. In this broken way, it was walked for more than 160 years. The path was broken, and people in power simply kept walking it, repeating the same patterns of pain and hurt over and over again. While the last residential school closed its doors in 1996, the impact of the schools has left an indelible mark. Indigenous communities continue the hard work of healing from intergenerational trauma, reclaiming language and traditional ways, mending from the broken way that they were forced to walk. The resilience displayed by those who have courageously shared their stories, shared their truth, show us that the path was paved with warning signs all along. From the very beginning, it ought to have been clear that this way was broken, that this way was paved by dominance, arrogance, and fear, and a deep failure to see the wisdom of Indigenous people and the value of Indigenous ways. But that's the insidious thing with broken ways. Somehow we begin to believe that there is no other way. Even when there are clear markers that show how broken the path we're on is, oftentimes we just keep on going, figuring it's easier, or simply being unable to imagine anything else. And so we keep our heads down and avert our eyes to the arrows pointing in another direction. In his message for Truth and Reconciliation Day, National Indigenous Archbishop Chris Harper said, "Check your hearts for the fences and the gates of defense that may hinder you from the shared journey of healing and hope." Check your hearts for the fences and the gates of defense. Living into the way of truth and reconciliation is a shared journey. Yet for non-Indigenous people, it must be a way that is walked with humility, mutuality, and deep respect. It must be a way that is walked with deep listening, attentive learning, and affirming action. I believe that one of the many, many ways that we can move forward together, where we can listen, learn, and act, is around care for creation, discerning a way forward in relation with the land, with creation, the place that we all call home. Did you know that more than 100 Indigenous nations and communities have launched Indigenous Guardians programs with dedicated guardians or land keepers whose role it is to steward and monitor lands and waters on behalf of their nations? While care for relationship with the land is deeply rooted in Indigenous ways, the Guardians program is a way to solidify a place at the table, hold government accountable, and facilitate deep learning and collaboration in an effort towards solutions to climate change, loss of biodiversity, and the impacts of colonialism. Indigenous teachings such as the seventh generation principle, which insists that every decision consider the impacts on those to come for the next 7 generations, and reflects on the wisdom of the past 7 generations. These principles, they're infused into the role of guardians, a deep recognition of the interconnectedness of all living things. Gloria Enzo helped to launch the Guardians program in Lutzelk'e Dene First Nation, located in Northwest Territories. She did this in honor of the teachings that her mother shared with her about the need to speak on behalf of the water, air, trees, and animals. Of this program, she said, "We are sustaining our traditional territory not only for us, but for the whole world. Our ecosystem is so pure. We have so many trees that we are cleaning up a lot of pollution. We are protecting Mother Earth in order for the rest of the world to live on her." This is anything other than a broken way. This is a way that is marked with generosity and care. Friends, the good news is that we don't have to stay stuck in broken ways. We remember them. We remember them so that we don't fall back into the brokenness, but we don't have to keep following them. The very name for Jesus in the First Nations version of Scripture is Creator Sets Free, we are not bound by our broken ways. And Creator sets free himself has shown us that his way is to walk the path of peace for all creation, not by way of force, coercion, or assimilation, rather by way of deep care, trust, and acceptance. What if the orange shirts we wear today on Orange Shirt Sunday and tomorrow on National Truth and Reconciliation Day are the very markers of this way? Will we follow this way and recognize it as one lined with truth, life, and love that seeks reconciliation for the good of all and not just some? May this be our deep hope.